Welcome back to another edition of First Person, again sponsored by the Rubenkamp Farm Drainage Company in Fort Laramie. 80 years of experience with wet fields, wet yards, wet basements. They can make water work for you. Call Phil Barkhorst at Rubenkamp's, again there in Fort Laramie. This week, first time in a long time, to talk with Lance Schneider, the head football coach of the Northmont Thunderbolt. It's always fun, and I congratulate you again. It's good to see you guys back where you like to be. 7-1 as we tape this week. You're having some success, and I know you enjoy the success of your kids.
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a process to kind of get us back to where we want to be, but last year the senior class did a great job for us and kind of overachieved a little bit. We were able to win the league, and this group we knew was very talented and a really tight-knit group of kids, which helps. So the chemistry's real good. Winning games. The cycle of athletes helps you too, doesn't it? I mean, you can coach your head off, but to have the kids out there like you've had in the past, the C.J. Barnett's, the Kirk Coleman's, and the Beltons, and people like that, it makes it a lot easier to win football games. Yeah, it definitely does. And this year, I think we probably got the best group of athletes we've had, skill player-wise. We're dynamite, and then defensively we were really big, which we haven't really been that way in the past. So we present a matchup problem for a lot of people.
I know a lot of coaches say I don't pay attention to anybody except our program, but I know you're not only a historian of football, but you're a guy who appreciates the success of other programs around the Miami Valley. Take a moment and characterize what football has been this year through the first 8 weeks. Some of the success and some of the programs you've admired and seen and pay tribute to.
Well, every year it seems like now you got teams like Springfield, Shawnee, and Tippecanoe, and those teams in the CBC that are good, and they are again, and they're all battling out here in the last couple of weeks. And, up north of the MAC, you always got Marion Local. It seems like they're great every year. I know Coldwater's struggling a little bit, but they're still winning a lot of football games. I'm sure there'll be 3 or 4 MAC teams in playoffs making noise again. And Covington, they're always successful. Moving right along. And A.J. Ouellette, he might be the best player in the area, no matter what division and stuff. Yeah, it's always fun this time of year to see who's going to make the playoffs and figure out who I get to go watch each week.
A.J. Ouellette could be the best player in the state of Ohio in Division 7 in school football. You ever stop and think about, you've been here a long time, never been able to get that state tournament championship, and then you look at a guy like Tim Goodman who has won 6 of them in 12 years, and boy, just rolling again this year. It doesn't seem like fate is, well, it's a part of high school football, whether it's fair or not, doesn't it?
Well, the MAC is kind of like the GCL is in Division 4.
Sure.
Those guys, they beat on each other all year long, and then they get in the playoffs, and it's easier, and that's kind of the way, the Catholic League is now in Cincinnati. They beat up on each other, and then they get in the playoffs, and they're just better than everybody else because they've been through all those tough battles. So, yeah, there's kind of some parallels between Division 1, Division 5, 6, and 7 in that regard. Hopefully this could be our year. I don't know.
Funny how the rich get richer, but they always seem to have great coaches. They always have continuity, in coaching and great players. I want to take a moment and let you talk about some of your kids this year. We mentioned a few of them a moment ago, C.J. Barnett from Ohio State that we saw last week, and Kirk Coleman and the Beltons. You've had great players here. You've had passers, you've had runners, you've had good defensive teams. You've won a lot of different ways. Tell us about the 2013 Bolts.
Well, it starts with our quarterback, Graham Ober, who, he didn't start a game until this year, but we kind of saw last year in JV ball that he was developing into a good player. And I think as a freshman, he was 5'8", about 150, and now he's 6'4", 210, and has a tremendous grasp of the offense and does a great job of distributing the ball to a bevy of great receivers and running backs. And, Johnny Lowry's he's kind of a slot running back hybrid type guy. We got a junior named Ryan Smith that's the same way, so we just line up an empty all the time and motion the guys in the backfield as to who we want to run the ball for us. Johnny's more of a perimeter guy. Cameron Taylor's lighting it up at wide receiver. He's got 10 touchdown catches and 3 in the first 5 minutes of the second half last week. He's kind of getting to the point where he might be the best receiver we've ever had. We've had some great ones.
Wow.
Our offensive line's doing a great job up front. They were a group that we weren't really sure of coming in because we had to replace 4 or 5 starters, but they've all done a fantastic job. Josh Perry's a junior left tackle that already has an offer from Toledo, and he's a really good offensive lineman, great technically. Defensively, like I said, we're really big up front. Tevin Nielsen and Sean Richards are our two defensive tackles. They're both 6'2", about 250. Our end, Terry Ramsey's already committed to the University of Louisville, 6'5", 240. Does a great job of being disruptive on the edge. But Kenny Coleman Jr., his dad played at Ohio State in the late 80s. He transferred here from Dublin, Scioto to play his senior year, so he could live with his dad here in our district. Thank God he did, because he's 6'3", 245, and is just a solid player for us. He's not too flashy, he's not real fast, but he does what he's coached to do. And Dante Blaine came back to us. He left last year to go to Jefferson, and I think realized what a mistake that was. Came back and was plugging the middle for us, linebacker. He's 275-pound linebacker. Not too many high schools have that. And then, our secondary was all back from last year. Isaiah Williams, probably the best player in the league. Plays strong safety and receiver for us. And Zach Weatherford's a really good free safety that's already got an offer from West Point. And Josh Blanken's got an offer from Miami and plays corner for us. So we're pretty solid on the defensive side of the ball.
We mentioned continuity a moment ago, and I was sitting here thinking, as you talked about some of the players currently having success for you, the characterization of Northmont football since you've been here has a lot to do with that continuity. Your staff's been together a long time. I know you give a lot of credit to your dad, Mike, who has coached with you all those years. Your guys have been together. A lot of people overlook that, particularly parents, particularly adults in the community. A few school boards along the way probably don't get that, but that has an awful lot to do with why Northmont football has been good for a long time.
Yeah, it's good to have the same guys coaching the kids year after year. We did have some turnover this year because Colin Abel's our basketball coach now, so he gave up.
Because the kids know what to expect.
Right. But Tony Rory stepped in and was doing the defense for us, and that's where he cut his teeth as a coach, coming up as a defensive guy before he went to pick up the offense. But the kids really responded well to him, and doing a great job of flying around, being physical, and that's kind of what you want to be more than anything.
Lance Schneider, our guest this week on First Person, you've never been a guy to shy away from an honest answer pertaining to the kind of question I'm going to ask you now. We recently wrote a piece on PressPros about football being at a crossroads because they have done so much to make the game safer. As kids get bigger, they get faster, the game gets faster, the hits are more violent. You see hits like you had in your game last Friday night, like Brad Roby was ejected from the Ohio State game. They call targeting hits. I say it's going to make the game maybe safer, but it also makes it tougher for kids to play because you don't know how to play. I'd like to hear your opinions on what the future of football holds going forward. It's a great game. It teaches kids a lot of great values. It's fun to play, something that's certainly worth preserving, but what's it going to be like in your mind?
Well, I can see the rules changes that they've made, especially at the NFL level, because the game's so fast. And it's a little bit easier for those guys to, target where they're hitting, more so than a high school kid. I'm glad it's not a targeting foul as an ejection in high school, because that'd be really tough, because you're just hoping the kid can actually tackle and get a kid on the ground, let alone everything else. But there's things that you can do to make it safer for kids, training them in the off season, stuff you can do in the weight room, things like that. We got through the concussion thing a couple of years ago that everybody was freaked out about. But, we're still seeing them, but not as many, again, because there's so many different things we do to kind of help prevent those now. The biggest thing is I'm glad to see the NFL's done the heads-up football thing. A lot of people are implementing it, and we did this year as well. You want to see that taught all the way through all the levels. The good thing, I think, with the rules changes at the college and professional level is the game's become more fundamental defensively, and that guys are starting to tackle again. Where a few years back, everybody was saying, "Oh, you've lost the art of tackling." Well, it's because they were flying in there like missiles and using their heads and trying to take people down that way instead of wrapping them up and chesting them up like they're supposed to. So, yeah, the changes are good for the game. I hope it doesn't make the game such that it becomes flag football in 25 or 30 years, but because like you said, it is a great game, and it teaches kids very valuable life lessons.
It absolutely does, as most sports do. But another important element of this is going to be community support. I think when you have the President of the United States come out and say, I don't know if I'd have my kid play football, it's just not safe, that sends a message. And a lot of people read that message maybe incorrectly. The translation, something is definitely lost. It's important that your community, your parents are behind you, your boosters, and people like that understand, again, those values that we just talked about.
Right. Well, the people who are on the fence generally are people who didn't play the sport.
True.
And, which President Obama didn't. But, the people who are for it, you look at a guy like Merrill Hodge, who's on ESPN, that had to retire because of concussions, but he's all for his kids playing the sport. It just comes down to, the science has gotten better to figure out what effects the game has. But you look at the sport of boxing and MMA and all that stuff, it's not going away, because people want to do it. Football's not going away. It's $11 billion a year business in this country. It's not going away because people are going to dump money into the game, and the Super Bowl is the biggest event in the world. So, all we can do as coaches is just make it safer for kids, and have people understand the value of playing the sport, what it can do for their children for the rest of their lives, and teach them all those life lessons that sometimes just don't get taught.
One of the reasons why the game of football, and specifically high school football, is so great in the state of Ohio, coaches like Lance Schneider, again, congratulations on the success this year. Thanks for the time. It's always great to visit with you. One of the great high school football coaches in the Miami Valley and the state of Ohio. That wraps up this edition of First Person, again sponsored by the Ruin Camp Farm Drainage Company in Fort Laramie. Give Phil Barhorst a call. 80 years of experience. They'll make water work for you. Until next week and another edition of First Person, thanks for your support of high school sports on PressProsMagazine.com.